Hello again, world. I have another song, but I also have for you a testimony of my own personal life, and I hope that this will help you because I know I cannot be the only one who goes through these things. And I feel that God has allowed me to go through some things because there are others of you that might need to know this. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I have been praying and asking God for something for a long time. You know, there's more than one, actually. I've been praying and asking God for a lot of things. But this is one in particular that I have been seeking God and asking Him about for a long time. And I'm telling you, it's been about 20 years that I've been asking. And that's a long time to pray. But I felt this was something that I needed an answer to. Really needed an answer to, and maybe you do too. And that's why I didn't quit. And you know, in the Bible where it talks about pray without ceasing, a lot of people don't know what that means. I think I know what that means. It means every time the thought or something comes to your mind and you think of it again and you instantly pray, wherever you're doing, you're driving, you're at work, whatever, wherever you're at, you have a thought come to your mind and you say, oh God, again, again, again. That's pray without ceasing. Every time it comes to your mind, whatever you're doing, whether it's a thought, whether you're whispering it, whether you're saying it out loud, whatever you're doing, when you think of whatever it is and you have a prayer come to your mind and you speak it or you think it or you whisper it or you groan it or whatever it is you do, that's pray without ceasing. Well, I had been doing this off and on for 20 years. And I'll tell you what the subject was. The subject was joy. And the reason I was praying about this is because I didn't feel like I had joy. 20 years or so is a long time to feel like you don't have joy. And I had been praying about it and questioning God for a long time. God, why don't I have joy? And I think a lot of the problem was I had the hardest time dissecting the meaning of joy from happiness. Because happiness is a superficial thing. It's a worldly thing. It's an emotional thing. And the only thing I could ever get out of anybody, if I ever tried to ask, why don't I have joy? The answer was, well, it's not the same. It's happiness. Okay, well, you've told me what it's not. Now tell me what it is. Now, can't do that. Okay, well, it's just they couldn't really describe it, and that was my issue. I can't define it. I can't define it. I know it's something spiritual. I know it's something out of this world. I know it's not just happiness, but I believe you can be grieved. You could be bereaved. You could suffer to death in the family. You could have illness. You can have pain. You can have heartbreak. You can have turmoil in your life, but somehow still have joy. My issue was I could not point to it and say, there it is. I know I have it. So I felt like I didn't have it. And I could look at all the other fruit of the Spirit. You know, the fruit of the Spirit that's in the Bible. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. I could point to all those things and say, God, I feel like I have those. Not that I'm in perfect, state, but for the most part, we all have failings because we still live in a human body in a fallen world. But I could say, Lord, I feel like I have love. I may not have shown love at every moment in my life, but for the majority of time, I feel like I have love. Majority, I feel like I have peace, long suffering, which is patience, gentleness, goodness. Am I always good? No, but I felt like I always have an intent for goodness. I always feel like I have a possession of it. Faith. Doesn't mean I always have faith in everything. I've had doubts with things, but for the most part, do I have faith in God? Yes. Meekness is humility. Temperance, not giving way to intemperate behavior and bad temper maybe, but anger and having control. I've felt I've had these things, at least for the majority, but I've looked at joy and said, God, I don't have that because I had such emptiness in my life for things that are missing in my life. And I felt like, God, I need these things for joy. And for so many years, I prayed, God, why do I not feel I have joy? And I didn't feel like I was receiving an answer. Now, I just don't believe that's because God wasn't giving me an answer. I feel like I had a bondage or a blockage to it that I was not able to receive an answer, and I was not able to overcome it. And a couple of years ago, I started looking at it and say, I've got to look at this differently because I'm just continually praying this and I'm not getting anything. And so I've got to look at it different. So I looked in the Bible where it says, from Jesus directly, these things I've spoken unto you, that my joy, meaning Jesus's joy, may remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Well, according to the Bible, it says Jesus has given me his joy. So therefore I should have it, should I not? So if I had it, apparently I was just unable to identify it and describe it. So I changed a little bit and said, God, if I have joy, and the Bible says I do, describe it to me. Tell me what it is so I can grasp it and say, I understand it now. And I spent a couple of years praying this. Every time I would hear a song that said joy, every time I heard a preacher say joy, every time I read the Bible, that there was a Bible verse that said joy, when the word joy would trigger this pray without ceasing in my mind. God, show me joy. Show me joy. Where's my joy? Why don't I feel like I have joy? Show me joy. And I continually prayed this. One day I was reading the Bible again. If you haven't caught this, you will. This is a key, I feel, a lot to how I got an answer. I am reading the Bible. I don't read it every day, but I read the Bible. If you're not reading the Bible, you may not be getting the answers that you need. A lot of it's in there, but sometimes it can be in there and you're not receiving it. So I read in the Bible in Nehemiah 8:10, the joy of the Lord is your strength. Now you know that verse. How many times have you heard that verse? I've read it 1,000 times. But again, I came across the word joy. Again, it triggered my little prayer. God, why don't I feel I have joy? What is it? Where is the joy? And you may already know the answer because maybe you didn't have a blockage in your mind to this, but maybe you do, and maybe you need to hear this as well. Or maybe it's something else, and this will just be a technique or something that God can use to speak to you. As I prayed it, and in my mind, I've learned over the years, my mind has a little bit of a roundabout way of thinking about things. I don't have dyslexia or learning disability or anything, but for some reason, my mind looks at things a different way. Like if you showed me a problem or something to put together like a bookcase, I don't look at all the pieces and then see myself assembling it. I look at the end result, I see the bookcase, and I backtrack it to the pieces. That's, my dad says, oh, that's how my mind works. So it's just, it's ingrained now. It's just how my brain is wired. I see things that sometimes what I call backward. I don't really think it's backward, but it's just a different, it's like going in a different door. It's the way my brain sees things and reads things and figures things out. And when I read this verse, the joy of the Lord is your strength, immediately, and I had read it before, but this one time when I prayed, God, show me joy, I immediately heard in my mind, read it backward. And I thought, I've never had that thought before. I've never read something in the Bible backward. I've never read anything in any book backward. And I'm not saying God wrote it backward. He didn't. It's correct the way it's there. But I just think because of the blockage or bondage that was holding me back from understanding and receiving what was there, God had to do it a different way for me. And when he said to me, read it backward, I paused for a second because that was an unexpected thought. And I thought, okay. And I didn't pre-plan how to read it. I didn't just read it right to left. I just said, okay, I'm going to read it different. And I went back to it again and read, the strength of the Lord is your joy. And reading it that way maybe doesn't do anything for anyone else, but in my brain, fireworks exploded. And whatever was blocking me from receiving was gone. And what I heard was, if you have the strength of the Lord, you have joy. That's joy. Now I'm not saying that's the only definition of joy. I believe the things in the Bible have multiple layers and multiple definitions and meanings and revelations that can be there for you, but I just needed one. I needed to know I've not withheld joy from you. So what was it that I had that was joy? It was the strength of the Lord. And see, I could grasp that. I could look at that and say, I've got this. I have the strength of the Lord. If I have the strength of the Lord, I have joy. Well, how did I know I had the strength of the Lord? Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to tell you, what if you're saying you don't have the strength of the Lord? Well, I don't have joy because I don't have the strength of the Lord either. If you don't have the strength of the Lord, you can get the strength of the Lord. And it wasn't that this is the same as you don't have joy. You can get the joy of the Lord. I just couldn't define it. And so it's like if you've heard of people who've had transplants, a liver transplant, a kidney transplant, a heart transplant. What happens is you have, say, a weak heart, and you're not going to make it because it's not strong enough to support you. And your entire system, your entire body is breaking down because what you have is too weak. So what do? They take an organ from somebody who has died. Yes, that is significant. And they plant it in you. And that heart that belonged to somebody else now becomes your heart. It wasn't your heart. Your own heart was not strong. But the one that's planted in you now is. It is strong. It is young. It is healthy. And your whole body will become healthy because you got a heart transplant. Well, this is what I feel happens with the strength of the Lord. You aren't strong. None of us are strong. None of us have ever been strong. But what happens is Jesus took his strength and he died. And he takes his strength and he puts it in you. And now his strength is your strength. I've had people tell me before, you are strong. You know, I had Pastor David come up to me in church one day, and it's been over a year ago. And he was talking to my dad sitting there in church, and then he leaned over to me and he started to say something, and he kind of cut himself off in the mid-sentence. I don't even know what he was starting to say. And he looked at me and he said, "You are so strong." And I was really taken aback, and I thought, well, where'd that come from? What'd I do? Well, what does he see that's strong? I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea what he sees that's strong. But I know he doesn't see my strength. He sees God's strength. But I think a lot of the reason people think I'm strong is because I have been tapping into God's strength for so long that it has become my strength. See, I became a Christian when I was 9 years old, not just saying the magic words to become a Christian. I really turned my heart over to God when I was 9 years old. And you think I was strong at 9 years old? I was a kid. I wasn't strong. I learned, I don't know how I learned it. Nobody taught me. Somehow my spirit knew. I started pulling on God's strength from so early that it became transplanted in me. And the strength that you see, that you think you see is me. It is not me. It is him. I look at it like a toaster. You know, a toaster on the counter is a box. Has no strength. You can put a piece of bread in it, put the button down, does nothing. You know what it does? I did this one day. I put a piece of toast in the toaster and I forgot it. I was going to cook it before I left. I forgot. I left it there, and by the time I got home, it was a stale crouton. So if you try to do something in your own strength, you're just going to ruin things. We have no power in ourselves. But what happens if you plug the toaster into the power source? You get a box that can cook things. But it can turn it to a crisp if you wanted to. You get something with some power because it's wired for power, but it has no source of power on its own. But if you plug it in, you can become a conduit. I like that word because my dad was he's an architect and into construction. I know what conduit means. It means you have no power, but you're letting it go through you. Well, what I was going to tell you, how do I know I have strength? And how do I know it's not mine? Well, I always knew, but a few years ago, I really knew. What happened is and this is hard for me to talk about, but I want to help you if you need to hear this. About 5 years ago, I found out I was going to be left alone. Now, am I really alone? No, God's here. And I have family all over the place. I live 1 mile from my brother, 2 miles from my sister, 4 miles from my parents. I have cousins, aunts, uncles, all over the place who love me, that would do anything for me. And I'm thankful for that. But you know, you can be in a crowd and still feel alone. There's a difference between alone and lonely. But as far as support, yes, I knew they would support me if they needed to, but I didn't feel that was the job God really was placing on them. It was placed on someone else. And when that does not work out, you find yourself alone to support yourself. See, I knew I couldn't support myself in my own power. I had always lived with the dream that one day I would be a full-time homemaker. And so I only had a part-time job because I was just trying to earn some more income, so we had some more income. My job went to a full-time job, from a part-time job to a full-time job, 2 days before I found out I was going to be supporting myself and living alone. a 2-day full-time job is not enough to build up any kind of support for yourself. I didn't know where I was going to live. I knew I couldn't afford my home. I lost my home. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know how I was going to support myself. I didn't know if I could even financially do it because I had never lived alone before. I went straight from my parents' home in full support to the home of a marriage. I had never lived alone, never wanted to live alone, still don't want to live alone, but for some reason this is where God has me. I saw myself as if I were standing on the edge of a pool, and what I pictured in my mind was the pool my Uncle Bunker and my Aunt Joyce had when I was a kid. They were the first ones in our family that had a regular pool. And so I was a swimming fiend when I was a kid. I loved to swim, and so we'd go over there all the time just so I could swim. I pictured myself standing on the edge of their pool, and it had their house, they had more shores. It had a white border around it. And if you've ever dove backward into a pool, stand on the edge, put your toes on the edge, and you don't just fall. If you fall, you're going to have a back flopper, and that's going to kill you. You jump, and you dive, and you arch your back, and you go backward into the pool to do a back dive. I pictured myself standing just like I was on the edge of their pool when I found out that I was going to be alone. I pictured myself on the edge of this pool because I knew my means of support, my strength, I wasn't going to be able to make it with that. I knew it. And I had always trusted God, was still trusting God. I felt like I had God's hand, but I had had other little means of support. And when you have other means, you do trust that a little bit, even though you ultimately have to trust God, but you naturally will lean to trusting what you've had. And it was going away. And I had nothing else. I didn't feel like my meager efforts at that time weren't enough to support me. I pictured myself on the edge of the pool. I bent my knees. And I leapt. I didn't fall. I didn't slide. I didn't wait for a catastrophe because I knew it was coming. And so I didn't wait. I jumped up in the air, but not back into a pool. I jumped back into what I pictured as the hand of God and said, I landed there like it was a cloud. And I said, God, it's all you now. It's all you now. I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't have the means to regulate how expensive things are. I don't have the means to make myself get more money. I can't make them give me a raise. I just barely went to full time. I don't have the means to do anything. It's all you now. Now he was always my support, always the base of it, but now he was all of it. How do I know I have strength? Because when I did that, I have not fallen. I have always had enough. It's always just been barely enough. I haven't really seen a lot of overabundance, but I have not fallen. But even if I did, even if I lost something, I lost before I lost my home. I lost my identity. I didn't lose my real identity, but I lost part of it. I lost part of something that I had and that I wanted. It was gone. I lost things I never expected to lose and never wanted to lose, but God was still faithful, and he was my strength. That's how I knew I had strength, because I knew I had God's strength. And when he said to me, that's your joy, that's joy, I knew I had strength because I had been leaning on it full force for 5 years. I'd always leaned on God's strength, always. But I had been leaning on it full force for 5 years, and it has not failed me. In spite of the fact that I have lost things, and I have missed things, and feel like I've missed out on things, and still want and desire and need other things that I don't have. But his strength and upholding power has not failed. So I knew while I was laying in this cloud of his hand and he held me up, that I had strength because he put it in me like a heart transplant. And that I operated for so many years fully in his strength because I could barely make myself get up out of the bed. This is very common with grieving. and bereavement, for whatever your reason for grieving. You can barely function. You can barely move. You can barely make your brain work. That's very common from what I've heard. Everything I did from the full force, power of God, enabling me to do it. So I knew I had strength. So when he spoke to me and said, that is your joy, because I had been relying so completely on his strength for so long, I knew it was there. I could point to it. I could identify it. I could see it. I could feel it. And so if I said, if that's joy, then I have had joy. I do have joy, and I've had it all along. But if you are saying, well, that's all fine, but I don't feel like I have strength. Maybe you haven't had to rely on God like that, or maybe you've been relying on your own strength. That's why you feel like you don't have strength. You're relying on yours. You're relying on yours. And it's not any good. It's an empty toaster on the counter. It's no good. If you're relying on your strength, you've got to let it go. See, when I dove, in my picture in my mind, I dove off the side of the pool into God's hand, I let mine go. Because I knew it would fail me. Oh my goodness, that I know it would fail me, because I just didn't have enough of what it would take to survive and to thrive at all. And I knew I didn't. So what am I holding that for? What am I holding this little pitiful thing that's like, why, if you have a faulty heart, you got to get that out before they can put a new one in. You got to let go. And I had let go of everything I had in my life, everything, and said, God, all you now, all you now, all you. And if you're having trouble doing that, I've got a couple of verses for you. I read this one to you, John 15:11. These things I, meaning Jesus, has spoken unto you, that my joy, his joy, will remain in you, and that your joy might be full, and your strength might be full. Proverbs 10:29. The way of the Lord is strength for the upright. Boy, that's a simple verse. So simple. The way of the Lord. Okay, what's the strength of the upright? What did that just say? Strength of the upright. The strength. How do you receive strength? The way of the Lord. What's the way of the Lord? Where do you find the way of the Lord? Here. We're back to reading the Bible. That's where you find it. That's where I found it. If you are relying on yourself and not that, and if you are not feeding yourself that, you're waiting for church to give you a little, you know how much Bible you get at church? Any church, anywhere. Because they're going to read a little bit of Bible, then they're going to explain it to you, which is a good thing, because then you learn about it. But you know how much you get? That much. You're starving yourself. You're anemic. You're anorexic if you're not reading the Bible. You're starving. This is why you have no strength, because the strength comes from the Word, because the Word shows you the way of the Lord. If you're following the way of the Lord, Proverbs 10:29, the way of the Lord is strength for the upright. But you've got to be following it. You can't just read it. You can't just do it. You've got, the Bible says, be doers of the word. You've got to obey it. You've got to do what it says. If you are not following it, you're not following Christ, and you're not obeying it, you're not getting the strength out of it, even if you're reading it. You've got to obey it. Here's another one. Isaiah 30:15. In quietness and trust is your strength. Quietness, I feel, is like a peace, calmness, and trust. See, when I threw myself into the hand of God, that was utter trust, complete. Does that mean I've never had lack of trust? But oh yeah, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep letting go, because you will naturally, your carnal nature will naturally grasp for things in this world to grab a hold of and to trust. Everybody's does. Even if you've completely given it over to God, you got to be careful you don't go back, because it just does. That's why you need to read the Word and build up your strength in the Word, because you're starving and then you can't even hold on to that. In quietness and trust. If you are really trusting Him, that's how you get strength. If you don't have strength, you probably don't have trust. If you don't have trust, how do you get trust? You know, trust is another word for faith. The Bible's very plain. The Word of God. If you're reading the Word of God, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. If you are not reading it and you are not hearing it more than this, you won't have faith. You won't have trust, and therefore you won't have strength, and therefore you won't have joy. Look, it's all tied together. This is just something that I've learned. We can all learn, no matter how long you've been a Christian and how much you already know. You can always learn more. You can always grow. And we all need to learn more because we are in this carnal world and our weakened condition still. We've not got our glorified bodies yet. We always have to be fighting against falling back. If you're not fighting against it, it's going to drag you down. And through the word and through prayer and through trust is how we fight against it. I would like to sing this song for you. I want to tell you another thing about this before I sing it. Since I have been alone, I've experienced an incredible phenomenon that I've never had happen before in my life. I've heard about people saying there's a song in the night. That's a literal thing. It's a literal thing. And I've had it. I'm not a morning person at all. I don't wake up easily. Many nights, well, actually it's mornings. It feels like night to me. I'm not a morning person. Many mornings, not all of them, but just once every few months, I have slightly woken up to where I'm in a state between waking and sleeping. And I know you all know what that means. You're kind of awake. And I've heard a song playing in my brain as if someone was singing it to me. It wasn't me singing it. And it's usually been a song I have not heard for 20, 25 years. It's not a song I'd heard lately. It's not one I'd thought of. It's not one I'd looked at. It's one I have not heard. So it wouldn't have been in my head from any recent times. But I would barely be awake and feel like I could hear music. There was no music playing. There was no radio, no TV. There was no music around. It's in my spirit. And it's like an angel or God or Jesus, I don't know who, somebody is singing to me. And I can hear all the words. And I can hear the singing. And I think, oh, I needed that song. This song I'm going to play for you is a song I woke up to, one of the first ones since this miraculous phenomenon has been happening to me. One of the songs that I woke up hearing being sung to me. If you've never had your spirit or God's spirit singing to you, oh, is it an awesome thing? And I'm so glad I've gotten this. I just lay there, because what happens when I realize I hear music? I get a little bit more awake. And I think, oh, I'm not moving because I hear a song. I hear a song and it's beautiful. And the words are something that I needed to minister to my spirit. And this song ministered to my spirit. And I'm hoping this song will in turn, I feel God gave it to me for me. I feel he gave it to me for you. There's somebody out there as well. And I'm going to sing this for you. I have a source of strength when I am weak, that takes me through when life is pressing me. I have a source of power from above. I'm covered over by a shield of love. I have a source of strength when I am weak, that takes me through when life is pressing me. I have a source of power from above. I'm covered over by a shield of love. I do not know how others make it through, who just make it through, who never go to Calvary as I do. For there the healing, cleansing stream still flows, with a love that only His redeemed can know. I claim the blood Jesus shed on Calvary. Those precious blood stains were made there just for me, for all my sin, my sickness, and my pain. When I need healing, I claim those precious blood stains. I have a source of strength when I am weak. It takes me through when life is pressing me. I have a source of power from above. I'm covered over by a shield of love. Let Him be your full source of strength. You will find you are strong, and you have joy, and you have whatever else you need. Let Him transplant it in you. Take out your weak part, which is everything, and put in His. He died. He died to transplant it in you. Don't let His death be in vain. Thank you for listening. Please share my video. Have a great day. Till next time, may God bless you, and I love you.